Okay, welcome back to the series about the stages of soul evolution as a human. In the last video, I was talking about the Earth season of the whole journey. So the first season is the fire season, and it's the Aries, Taurus, and Gemini cycles. It's all about yourself. Even though in the Taurus cycle you commune with the identity of your family, but it's in terms of the larger picture, it's a season. It's the season of your soul evolution when you implement lessons that have to do with yourself. This is the large theme. It's the fire element. So throughout this season of your incarnations, of your soul journey, you have to integrate at least the basis of the fire element. And it's basically the youth of yourself as a soul. Things are not that complicated, things are not that serious as in other lifetimes. The more you ascend into the cycles, the more of an impact you have. And you saw this when I explained the Leo season, the Leo cycle. That's when you really have an impact on a lot of other people. So Crab, Leo, and Virgo are part of the summer season of your journey as a soul through the human consciousness. And it's a time, the element is Earth, and it's about Earth herself. Even though Earth herself is Crab, it's the mother. But this is the element of Earth, and it's about worldly affairs. It's about things that happened in the material plane. And in the material plane, it's all about, immediate things, immediate actions and consequences that happen for all of us. So it's a time of the collective, it's a time of community, it's a time of playing a role that has a lot to say. In starting with the Leo season, because even though we're talking about spring, summer, autumn, and winter, we're also talking about cycles that are a bit more elemental. So when I say elemental, I mean cycles that start with fire, a fire sign, and end with a water sign. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Crab. So even though Crab is the beginning of the summer season of your soul journey, at the same time, it's part of another cycle of 4 signs. And it's the last cycle of that. Is the last sub-cycle of that bigger cycle. When it comes to the Crab cycle, it's a time of transition from individuality to collectiveness. It's water. Water has a lot to do with, merging. You know that saying that when the wave realizes that it's part of the ocean, it will not be a wave anymore. So in the crab cycle, you start the crab cycle with lifetimes that are a bit more individualistic, because let's remember it's still a cardinal sign. But it's a cardinal sign that shifts a bit the narrative. So you start a bit more individualistic, but you commune in different stages, more and more with different notions of community and collectives. So, with the Leo cycle, with the Leo sub-cycle, you begin a new, bigger cycle that spans from Leo to Scorpio. Leo is a fire sign. Whenever there is fire, there's a new beginning. But the thing with the Leo cycle, it's very serious. I talked about it in the previous video, and I presented all the complexity of this cycle. One more thing I want to point out. Something that is very dangerous in the Leo cycle is that in the Leo cycle, your individuality starts to be a bit more spiritual, because it's the Leo cycle, it's the sun cycle. The sun is spiritual. Why is it dangerous? Because this is the time when your individuality can become spiritually evil. So, in previous lifetimes, in the previous cycles, we're talking about lifetimes when people are not necessarily having contracts with fallen angels and stuff like that. At least not consciously. So, there are a lot more nuances here. Let's say we're talking about someone who, as a soul, is for the first time going through these cycles from Aries to Crab. In these lifetimes, they won't have contracts with, secret elites and stupid stuff like that, because they are still part of the lower spheres of human consciousness. Once a soul enters the Leo cycle, that's when they can sell their soul for the first time. Yes, I said it, for the first time. Souls can actually do it multiple times. It sucks. But in the Leo cycle, like I said, you're either royalty, either celebrity. And this comes by having the sun as your primary spirit guide. But it's not just the sun, because it can be another deity as well. I was talking about King Odysseus in the last video. He was famous for having Athena as his spirit guide. So it can be the sun, it can be another deity that has a lot to do with rulership and leading. But it can also be Satan. Yes. That's why you get all of those kings and queens and celebrities that are no longer their own. So, like I said, one of the primary lessons of the Leo cycle is to own yourself. Ironically enough, some souls choose to do the exact opposite. They own themselves by selling themselves. And they have this cycle when they will be fallen kings, fallen celebrities, corrupted people, corrupted souls. But like I said, they will have to pay for that. And in the next cycle, they'll be slaves, either on this planet or another. There were cases when, other civilizations from other planets came here and they literally made humans slaves. Maybe not all humans, but enough. There were enough. And some of them they kept as slaves on Earth, and others were taken on their own planets. This can happen as well. So, like I said, if the souls that reach the Leo cycle of evolution do the bad things, basically they just fall throughout that cycle, and for the promise of material gain, material fame, material anything, they sell themselves. That's it. They will have to live with that. And they'll go to hell, and then next time they come incarnate as people who are not people of their own selves. People without freedom, people without a voice, people without a choice. In other words, slaves. So that's what happens to the people who sign such kind of contracts. They have the cycle when they reap the benefits of those contracts, but then they have the cycle when they suck. So rest assured, they get their karma. They get what is coming for them. On the other side, there are the souls who sign contracts with the bright beings, with the real deities of light, of love, of kindness, of, true ascension. And if they really follow the path of the sun through these lifetimes, in the next lifetimes, they will come back to the earthly realm a bit more. It's a cycle that has to do with the earth element a lot, because it's an earth seasonal cycle. It's the summer cycle, which is earth, and it's also the sign of Virgo, which is an earth sign. So it's double earth. So at this time, they work with the earth a lot. But if they did the right work in the Leo cycle, they work with the earth in a spiritual way. They are medicine people. They are witches and wizards and shamans. So they will also be somewhat guiding the community, but also serving the community in the same time. But it's not according to the fire element, it's according to the earth element. In the Leo season, the Leo cycle, you have to both lead and serve, but it's according to the fire element. So you really have to be royalty, you really have to shine, to be yourself, to own yourself. In the Virgo cycle, you're not rooted in your identity so much, and in your identity as an individual so much, even though you can very well still be. But it's about the fact that your identity through the Virgo cycle is a healer, is someone who mends. This is what Virgo does. Virgo organizes, repairs, mends, fixes. These are the key verbs of Virgo. And like I said in the previous video, it can souls can also have lifetimes that, you know, they are a bit more technical in the community, a bit more in the masculine side of Virgo. I don't know, they serve the community by organizing the community one way or another. They can still be, you know, let's say they are still part of the royal apparatus, but they may be people that organize the resources of the community, people that write down the accounts of the resources of the community. This is very Virgo. And Mercury, again, is your spirit guide through the cycle. If you're in the right team, if you're part of the souls that chose to work with light and love. If we're talking about the souls that have to become slaves, then at that point it doesn't matter anymore. It's not Mercury, it's Satan. Saturn. Because through the Leo cycle they sold themselves to him. And that's why in the Virgo cycle they have to go through Virgo under a Saturnian influence of chains. But they deserve it. Okay, but if they are still people of their own, who kept their free will and their independence and their sovereignty as souls, again, Leo has a lot to do with sovereignty. Leo and the Sun have a lot to do with sovereignty. Through the Virgo lifetimes, like I said, they'll serve the community, which is people of the land, people who work with the land in medicinal ways, in ways that fix other people's lives. Sometimes when we're talking about, you know, people that are not so high in their evolution that they can be shamans or witches or wizards, but neither so low that they have to be slaves. They are somewhere in the mid portion. They'll just be incarnate in communities when, let's say, they are not necessarily forced to do things. Like, let's say they are they cook food in the castle for lords and ladies. Because remember, this comes right after the Leo cycle, so they have to pay the karma. In the previous cycle, when they were royals themselves, they had other people cook for them. Now they kind of have to pay that karma. So let's say they are in the neutral sphere in this cycle. They might be people who cook for the royals. It's not like they are slaves, but they're not it's not a spiritual work either. You know, as it is for those who come incarnate as wizards, shamans, witches. They're just still working with it. But they'll get paid for their work, but it's still a work that is for the community. And it's still a work that is serving, is a work of serving. So this is primarily in the Virgo cycle. Also, lots of people, when they are going through the Virgo cycle, they can become pharmacy people. And I'm not talking, about fucked up pharmaceuticals. I'm talking about a real pharmacy with plants. Herbalists. Also, we may have alchemists. People who come incarnate as alchemists in this cycle, because alchemy is spiritual, but it's also a very masculine approach to spirituality and a very scientific approach to spirituality, which is kind of Virgo. Nonetheless, the North Node is part of their spirit team as well. So through this cycle, they may be pushed or forced to come incarnate to do things that they haven't done before, and or to come incarnate with certain obsessions that may serve them in the long run. The North Node is an obsessive nature, but it's basically the energy of needing to accomplish things in the material world. So even for those who come incarnate as spiritual healers, in this cycle there will still be a material focus on their lives. It's not the type of spiritual figure that you see in the later cycles. Even though they are working with the land and they're working with the plants and, they still have a material focus and they still have material drives, material goals. It's not necessarily something bad. It can turn out bad for some people, but in itself, it shouldn't be something bad, as long as, like I said, it's something that results in something positive for them as souls, that results in soul growth. It's also a time when they may work with the North Node in multiple ways. A lot of souls through the cycle, especially in the mid and later part of the cycle, can really have lifetimes when the North Node moves through all of the houses, all of the signs. Because they really have to understand what it means to have that kind of material push, material obsession of achieving in the material world. It's very similar to the Aries cycle, but in the Aries cycle, there's the thing that in the Aries cycle, because it's a cycle when you do things for the first time, they will need to go through all of the signs in the Aries cycle. Especially their sun sign. When we're talking about the ascendant, they can skip one sign or another. But when we're talking about the sun, they really have to, in the Aries cycle, they have to experience all the signs for the first time, because Aries is the energy of doing things for the first time, initiating. But in the Virgo cycle, because they have to incorporate the energy of the North Node, they will again go through sub-cycles of going through all of the signs and all of the houses, but it will be a lot more material and a lot more obsessive. Basically, they will not be able to rest, and a lot of them, especially those in the midsection of consciousness for this cycle, the ones that, like I said, they're not very spiritual yet, but neither very corrupted yet. Hopefully not yet. Hopefully they won't be corrupted at all. When they are just in between them, not very spiritual, not very corrupted, just in between them, they will really experience the shifts of the North Node and the kind of madness of the kind of madness that the North Node brings in terms of focus, what you focus on through your lifetime. And in this cycle, because it's the Virgo cycle, because it's Earth, and it's within the Earth season, they will come incarnate, especially in the midpoint of the cycle, with lifelong obsessions of a certain area of their lifetime. So whether it's their first house, second, third house, fourth house, whatever house, they will need to achieve something in that area of their life, and they'll be focused on that through their whole life. It will be a lifelong obsession. But it's not the kind of Scorpio obsession, even though for some it can manifest like that. It's more like the Virgo obsession, the obsession with perfection. With doing things right, just right. So, in the Aries cycle, we're talking about going through all of the signs for the first time so that the soul is accustomed with all of the signs. In the Virgo cycle, it's about the fact that they must have that kind of obsession of doing things right within those energies, of accomplishing goals in their material reality according to each of those signs. They will have a lifetime with the North Node in Aries, slash the first house, then the North Node in Taurus, slash the North Node in the second house, and so on. And they will be highly focused on that, on really achieving the lessons of the North Node, the placement of the North Node throughout this cycle of lifetimes. This is when they integrate that. And it's also a cycle when they learn to use their mental abilities for the benefits of their earthly realm, of their earthly life. Even if we're talking about the ones that are witches and shamans, actually, they will be like really good at using the spiritual practices for the benefits of their material life, and not just their material life, but also the life of others, the material life of others. And this is when the summer season of soul evolution, and therefore the earth season of soul evolution, ends. And we enter the autumn of a soul's evolution within human consciousness. So we enter into Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. Things will get very serious here, especially with Scorpio. This is a season of soul evolution when the focus is still on others. If you notice, this side will be about the self. This side will be about the self, but also the community, with just a high focus on the community. It's still other people, but it's other people as a collective. Whereas in this cycle, it's other people, but it's just that. It's no longer other people as a collective. It's other people individually. Because it's air and it's the exact opposite of fire. So, at this point, just as much as you learned to focus on yourself through the fire season, you will learn to focus on other people, but individually. You will learn to focus on the other individual next to you, and this starts with the Libra season, the Libra cycle. Throughout the Libra cycle, because you have paid your karmic debts very well through the Virgo season, the Libra cycle will be very beautiful. It's supposed to be very beautiful, and it needs to be very beautiful. It's a respite from the heavy karma that some souls might have collected in the previous cycles. And it's a cycle when the soul really understands justice. It's, again, a feminine cardinal sign. So the feminine cardinal signs are Crab and Libra. But Crab is a water sign. It's emotional. Libra is a feminine sign that is air. So it's mental. So you learn to relate to other people, but integrate that within mental notions of justice, of morals, of righteousness. In ancient Greek astrology, they said that Libra and Virgo are related. Actually, one of them was the mother of the other. Essentially, they are related. You cannot ascend into the Libra realm of consciousness without going through the Virgo realm of consciousness, where you really pay off your karmic debts to the collective. And for the souls that when they were in the Leo cycle, they sold themselves and then they were slaves, they don't have the right to go into the Libra collective. They have to go back, incarnate as animals, and then when they pay karma more and more and more and more, only then they can start again from the beginning and go through cycles again. Because this is the moment the whole zodiac shifts. Libra is the 7th sign. So it's the second half of the whole zodiac. You cannot ascend into this realm of consciousness without really integrating the lessons of the previous cycles and really mastering them. Someone who has failed the Leo cycle and then needed to pay the karmic debt of that through the Virgo cycle, this doesn't mean that they mastered these energies. It means that they actually made a mess of them. So they need to go back, start all over again. They don't start from Leo. No. They start from the beginning. But like I said, they come in first, they go back to being incarnate as animals. And it makes perfect sense as well, because Virgo is also rules pets. So once you reboot your journey because you fucked up here, you will not come incarnate as animals of the wilderness. If a soul fucks up and they need to come incarnate again as animals, they will come incarnate again as animals of the wilderness if they go back to that when they are incarnate as a human in this first cycle, in this first season of fire, because fire is wild. But if the reboot is done in the Virgo cycle, after the Virgo cycle, they have already been through the human consciousness so much that when they go back to being animals, they still need to be in contact with humans, because technically they have gone through the previous cycles. So they need to really focus on these last ones, even though not only because they really have to go through everything again, but they will come incarnate again as pets now. And once again, if they were shitty people when they were humans, and if they treated other humans badly and animals badly, well, guess what will happen to them when they themselves come incarnate as animals again? Yeah, you guessed it. And if they are souls that sold themselves to Saturn when they were in the Leo cycle, once they are rebooted as souls, all of these cycles that they will go through again will be very serious and very hard and very karmic, because they already sold themselves to Saturn, and they do not have the right to revoke that contract until they are in the Sun and Leo cycle again. Interesting, right? I love it. Justice. So all of this, when they go through all of this again, it's gonna suck for them. And sometimes, that's why you may meet people that are very mediocre and, very you can see the evil in them. But they are in the lower spheres of human consciousness. Well, that's because they had the chance of being in the higher spheres of human consciousness, but they fucked up. And they chose the path of evil. They chose the path of immediate satisfaction. Basically, all those souls who are met with the chance of selling themselves to Saturn, there are two Saturns. A fallen one and an enlightened one, existing in different timelines, but because time in itself universally, basically as a soul you can access all time frames. You can either access the fallen Saturn or the self-actualized version of Saturn. Basically, the thing with Saturn is that he's a fallen angel that needs to redeem himself, and that's why he comes incarnate as a planet in a system, in a solar system that deals with all of these stupid things, because he himself needs to redeem himself, and that's why he is the ruler of people that also have to redeem themselves, people that choose the path of darkness and evil and all of that. And that's why he is the lord of karma, technically, because he's the devil, because the fallen side of Saturn actually enjoys hurting and making other people suffer. Okay. And the time when souls are presented with that type of contract of selling themselves to this horrid being, horrid version of Saturn, in their Leo cycle of lifetimes, basically that's a test. Because this is the Earth season. This is the summer season, the Earth season. So what they are doing, basically they are presented with a contract of, the result, the immediate result is immediate gratification, immediate satisfaction. But there are severe consequences for that. Because, they're selling themselves. And this is the point. They are in the free will universe to master their free will. And this is why they are presented with that contract in the Leo cycle of lifetimes. Because it's the summer season, it's the Earth season. So it's about earthly satisfaction, earthly gains. And Leo is about soul sovereignty, self-sovereignty. So they are presented with the chance of signing a contract. That means they sell themselves for immediate earthly gratification, immediate earthly satisfaction. But they will suffer because of that. And the souls who do that, the souls who sold themselves to Saturn, once they sign that contract, they no longer have any sovereignty as souls. And, like I said, they will go through lifetimes of being slaves when Saturn will really enjoy messing with them. Ironically enough, Saturn actually becomes a good guy in that scenario, somehow. He's so bad. But like I said, they will be slaves in this cycle. And then they are sent to judgment. They are sent to hell. And then they come incarnate as animals again. As pets, a lot of them. And pets in very stupid households. Pets that are really... it's either domestic animals that are really worked out, like let's say horses that are really worked out, or bulls that really have to work the land, or I don't know, just pets or domestic animals that really are either very abused emotionally. Let's say they're dogs, and they're very loyal, but their owners are narcissists that just abuse them a lot and even beat them. All sorts of stories, of scenarios, either emotionally abused, either physically abused, in any case, just exploited. Overworked domestic animals as well, that literally die out of being so overworked. But that's what happens, when you're stupid. And then, once they really go through such lifetimes, when they pay their karmic debts, they come incarnate as humans again. They go through to the non-physical when they take a pause, because after such lifetimes of intense abuse, you need kind of a pause. And then they come incarnate again as humans. But the problem with these souls is that many times they turn out to be narcissists. Because there's so much abuse going on and so much trauma going on within their being. And that's why you see a lot of people, just like I said, mediocre people that are just so evil. So evil. That's because in a previous lifetime they signed a contract when they literally sold themselves to evil, to beings of evil. And once a soul sells themselves to Saturn or any other being of evil, they no longer have the time to revoke that contract until they are in a Leo cycle again. when they can reclaim their sovereignty. So throughout all of these lifetimes, there are very high chances they will still be narcissists, and they will be nothing else but instruments of evil. Once a soul sells themselves to Saturn, they will be nothing else but people who will come incarnate with the agenda of Saturn. Which means that they will come incarnate so that they can represent Saturnian tests for you and me. Interesting, right? They're not there for being themselves. They can't. They already sold themselves. That's why I tell people, stop trying to save narcissists. There's no salvation for those people. They're just pure evil. And they are literally possessed, owned by evil. So don't try to even engage with them whatsoever. And if you're, I don't know, you're at your workplace, or by any chance you need to interact with those people for short amounts of time, just remind yourself that you are a soul standing in your sovereignty. They are not. They will wreak havoc because of that, because they can feel it. Whatever you trigger within them, whatever you represent that they cannot represent, that will trigger them a lot. And when a narcissist gets triggered, they want to wreak havoc and hell onto everyone that dares remind them of how small they are. They know they are small, but they don't want to be reminded of this. They want lies and lies and only lies and all of that. Okay. So this is primarily what happens in the bottom part of the soul evolution. And just like you see, it's the bottom part. It's the foundation. And through these lifetimes, if you manage to turn all these lifetimes into high manifestations of those energies, even if, let's say, you go through a cycle and the first 3 lifetimes of the cycle you kind of fuck up, not so much as a narcissist, okay, you kind of fuck up, but you understand the mistakes and you integrate the lessons and you try to better yourself. The spirit guides appreciate that. That's what they want of you, to better yourself, to become better, to learn the lessons that you're meant to learn, to understand. So this is the foundation of the human experience, and it's at the bottom of the wheel. It's very material, it's very personal and very material. So it's a time when you understand the material world, the human material reality, the complexities of human structures, human societies, and you're part of them. But the higher part is the time when you begin to purge that. Because this, if this was a personal birth chart, these are the signs below the horizon. So in darkness. And these are the signs above the horizon. These are the signs literally in the visible sky. So once a soul ascends into the higher part, of their soul evolution. It's a time when they need to transcend normal humanity. These signs are very human. They're even Leo itself is very human, you know. Whereas these other signs, this is when you're called to be in contact with divinity and the spirit world constantly. You're not allowed to just focus on materiality anymore. Just that. That was for the bottom part. And you cannot ascend into the higher part if you don't integrate spirituality, especially in the Leo and Virgo life signs. Leo, like I said, is the first time your spiritual abilities really open up. Because, you know, it's the sun, and the sun bestows all sorts of blessings. And foresight is one of them. Prophecy, the ability to see with your mind, with your higher mind. The ability to commune with divinity and the spirit guides in the higher realms. So this is the time when everything shifts. And like I said, you understand sovereignty. So because in this cycle you understand soul sovereignty, and in the Virgo cycle you are kind of a perfectionist and you work with other people and you serve other people. In the Libra lifetimes you will understand justice. And you will be an instrument of justice, an extension of justice in this world. This is a time when Venus is your primary spirit guide. Athena as well. Some people say that Athena is actually Venus. You know, it's one version of Venus. Some people say that when Venus is a morning star, she's a bit different compared to the times she is an evening star. And one of these versions is Athena. One of these versions is more according to Libra, and the other one is more according to Taurus. Nonetheless, whether you believe Venus and Athena are the same, or you believe that they are different deities, they're both there in this cycle. And it's also a cycle of beauty. External and internal. You will come incarnate to experience beauty in all of its faces. You yourself will be a face of beauty. You will need to understand grace and morals, justice, and genuine compassion for the other person. And this is the time when you really experience one-on-one relationships throughout your lifetimes. Because this cycle is a cycle of me. Even though we have Taurus here, that's, you know, it's with family. This cycle is a cycle of community, but community at large. This cycle is a cycle that starts with one-on-one relationships. I'm a Libra rising myself and I love that. Genuine interest in the well-being of the other person. It's equality, harmony, balance, justice. a lot of people may actually be ambassadors in these lifetimes, but not fallen ones. Ambassadors in high courts, ambassadors in courts that happen in the good ages of humanity, in the golden ages of humanity, and it's just good times of humanity. Voices of justice, primarily, and faces of beauty. And sometimes souls in this cycle, you know, they can really just come incarnate to be portals of Venus into this world. This is beautiful. And they're meant to experience lifetimes when, you know, they experience beauty and arts. They are very visual in these lifetimes. Many of them, you know, come incarnate as female, as women most times. But it's not a rule. They can be men as well, but just very just men. And virtue is the keyword, one of the keywords of this cycle. This is what the soul must integrate in this cycle. For some people, you know, it can happen that they are royals again, but it's no longer coming from the Leo side of royalty. It's the Venus side of authority. That is all about harmony. You know, because basically it's not a rule. It's not a must that you come incarnate in one era or another, or one society or another, one social status or another. The key are just Libra notions. Harmony, beauty, fairness, relating to others, truly relating to others. Being there with another person. Marriage is also very important for these people. But it's not just a worldly marriage. It's true marriage. Soul marriage. So this cycle has many faces, but all of them have to be beautiful. Inside beauty and external beauty as well. And when incarnate in this cycle, the souls also require beauty around them. Chances are that they deserve beauty around them, since they are in this cycle. It's very beautiful. And because Venus is the primary spirit guide in these lifetimes, I do advise people in these lifetimes to take advantage of that. And it's a good time to commune with female deities. All types of female deities. If you can, commune with all female deities. It's very beautiful, and it's the right time to do that. And just be at peace. It's a time of internal peace, and you're an instrument of creating peace in the world as well. And like I said, it can take a lot of different phases. Okay, now the things shift drastically, because next is Scorpio. And even though Scorpio is in the midpoint of the air season, of the autumn season, at the same time, Scorpio is the end point of this cycle. I call it the second age of the zodiac, because the zodiac has 3 ages. The first age is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Crab. The second age is Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and the third age is Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So Scorpio is the end of the second age of the zodiac. It's the second water sign. Things get very heavy here, because there's a lot of trauma. It's a time when the soul needs to understand depth, real emotional and spiritual depth. Now, it's possible, well, it's not possible, it's reality that most souls who reach this cycle have already experienced Scorpio vibes throughout other lifetimes, especially in the crab cycle. But in this cycle, the specific Scorpio cycle, they are called to master their emotional and psychological world. And that's why it comes after Libra. You cannot do that unless you integrate justice, fairness, morals, virtues within you. Also, another thing to mention is that in the Libra cycle, souls can really learn a lot from their elders about morals and virtue and notions of virtue. But it's not just that. Because Venus is their primary spirit guide, they can learn that from their elders and really let that come naturally, because Venus is their spirit guide and it bestows these blessings upon them, which is great. So once you manage to do that and integrate all of these beautiful lessons, by the way, this is also a cycle that it's not too long for actually all of the souls who go through it. It's beautiful, it's harmony, so they can really go through it and integrate beauty basically in all of its forms. Praise Venus. Beauty. But then, once they are incarnate in the Scorpio cycle, that's when they pay karma again. And they really get heavy doses of it. Heavy doses of it. And this is a time when they pay the karma that they created for themselves, when they hurt people that were spiritually advanced and people with a deep emotional world. So in the previous cycles of their soul evolution, when they hurt other people, when they hurt people with deep and really expanded emotional intelligence, you know, they could not entirely pay for that until they reach this cycle. This is the cycle when they need to understand the depths of the human psyche and the extent that evil can get to. Some of them, once again, can be slaves. But it's basically a cycle of lifetimes. When you pay karma like really, really deep, when the soul is a victim of abuse, but does not succumb to the abuse. Because by this time, the soul is strong enough to not succumb to the abuse and really overcome it. It's also a cycle of lifetimes when the free will is tested again and properly integrated in terms of the emotional world. There is a lot of emotional turmoil and emotional struggle, and the thing is that once the soul ascends the Libra cycles, the Scorpio cycles, the lifetimes of the Scorpio cycle are lifetimes when the soul coming incarnate is into spirituality in all lifetimes. Whether they are priests and priestesses or any other form of, you know, spiritual practice. When I say priests and priestesses, I'm not talking about nowadays type of priests. I'm talking about ancient notions of priesthood, real devotion, lifelong devotion. So, it's a time when the souls really conquer anything that hell might have brought to them in previous lifetimes. So they really have to, you know, many of them have to go to certain traumas again in order to reawaken those memories within themselves as souls and really overcome them. And it's a time of intense transformation. What is done in this cycle cannot be undone. It's tremendous transformation, spiritual transformation. This is a time when they really understand spiritual depth. They really understand their spiritual body, their chakras. They learn how to work with that. They learn how to understand sexual energy as spiritual. They learn a lot. They learn a lot about themselves as souls. They expand their spiritual abilities, because this is the end of the cycle that started with the opening of spiritual abilities for the soul in their incarnate form for the first time. So it started like that, and it ends with really mastering that. Once the soul does that, the next cycle of Sagittarius is a cycle when they are gurus. So they teach that to other people. But the extent of transformation that happens in the Scorpio cycle is amazing. It's deep. It's very spiritual. It's just deep. And obviously the spirit of Scorpio and the Pluto and Mars are your spirit guides in this cycle. Also, deities of the underworld, all sorts of deities of the underworld, and deities of enlightened darkness, divine darkness, not evil, no, but darkness, the divine notion of darkness. It's intense, but it's so powerful. This is a cycle of sovereignty. It starts with Leo, with soul sovereignty, and it ends with Scorpio. Scorpio is the energy of personal power. So the soul has to claim that. The soul has to ascend to the level of deep spirituality. This is the Scorpio cycle. And a lot of times you will see souls in this cycle coming incarnate as priests and priestesses of the highest orders. Many of them can ascend to the status of high priest or high priestess, and they have access to a lot of occult spiritual knowledge that is not really given to souls of these cycles of evolution, because they're not ready, they're not able to understand it, and they're not able to wield it. So in the Scorpio cycle, I want to clarify something. When we're talking about, the current world, and when we're talking about humanity at large, and golden age versus fallen humanity, there are such things as good priests and fallen priests, fallen mages, and both of them are ruled by Scorpio. But in the cycle of soul evolution, the Scorpio cycle is you're not a fallen mage, you're not a fallen priest, you're not a dark priest, because this is soul evolution. This is not a lifetime in a cycle of corruption, even though Scorpio does rule corruption. But I'm talking here about the soul evolution. This is the 8th stage of soul evolution. So once a soul reaches this stage, they are the ones who are really able to wield spiritual power and learn the occult, the hidden knowledge. It's hidden for a reason, and you need true spiritual power for that. So congratulations to all of these souls who managed to go through this. It's very intense and it's very hard. It's the most testing stage of human soul evolution, the most. It's not allowed to cross the threshold of this Scorpio cycle without really imbuing yourself in spiritual depth, in spiritual evolution and transformation into the higher spheres of consciousness and knowledge. You're not allowed to go through this if you're not capable of being a force of justice, And like I said, the next cycle is the Sagittarius cycle, when you teach others. Now, in the Scorpio cycle, a lot of people may actually be part of secret groups. But I'm not talking about the corrupted secret orders. I'm talking about secret, occult sisterhoods and brotherhoods that, they're hidden for a reason. You need to be able to ascend to that. And the practices, the spiritual practices, and just the feeling itself is very intense. Okay. And you really have to be able to go to the depths of yourself as a soul and purge everything that needs to be purged there. You have to purify yourself inside a lot. And then in the Sagittarius lifetimes, you come incarnate as a spiritual master, as a guru, and you have to teach others. But in this cycle, life is a lot more beautiful. You may travel a lot. You are not necessarily part of a collective, whether that collective is a country or the human species itself. Actually, in this cycle, a lot of souls come incarnate on other planets as well, because they are ready, because they have gone through the Scorpio cycle. Okay, I will leave this video here for now, and I will talk about the rest of the stages in another video. I hope this was helpful.